Forget frequently asked questions.
Common sense, common knowledge, or Google.
How about advice from a real genius? 95% of people in any profession are good enough to be qualified and licensed. 5%
go above and beyond.
They become very good at what they do, but only
0.1%
are real geniuses. Richard Jacobs has made it his life's mission to find them for you. He hunts down and interviews geniuses in every field: sleep science, cancer, stem cells, ketogenic diets, and more. Here come the geniuses. This is the Finding Genius Podcast
with Richard Jacobs.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Finding Genius Podcast. I have Charlie Burgoyne. He's Valkyrie's CEO. The website is valkyrie.ai. We're going to talk about using AI to help healthcare companies make mission-critical decisions and figure life-saving insights and improve patient outcomes. So, Charlie, thanks for coming. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today. Looking forward to talking a little bit more.
Yeah. In your own words, what is Valkyrie about? What are you guys working on? Sure.
So you can think of Valkyrie as a modern-day applied sciences firm, kind of like a modern day Bell Labs or a modern day research institute turned industrial team. So our team is comprised of scientists, biologists, chemists, physicists, who are all working in different verticals together and deploying algorithms and machine learning techniques, deep learning techniques, in order to dramatically improve operational efficiencies and customer retention, all sorts of problems for our clients. So there's a degree of management consulting that is sprinkled into what we do, but predominantly we are a team of scientists solving difficult industrial problems.
So when you say industrial problems, what does that mean? Are these healthcare related industrial ones, or like what's the focus?
Sure. So given the fact that machine learning and applied sciences is quite a horizontal, we have a number of different verticals that we touch. So we've certainly done work in healthcare. Financial services is large for us. Automotive technology is a large vertical. Even this year, we've done quite a bit of work with government applications, intelligence and defense related, and then also the entertainment and transportation space. So a wide variety of different types of problems that we tackle.
So since there's lots of verticals, what are some of the problems you've worked on that really jump out at you that you enjoyed?
We enjoy any problem where we get to tackle truly impactful and easily realized results for our clients. We really focus on that. This year, we helped the largest ambulance company in the world develop tools around COVID modeling, prediction, and resource allocation. So basically a collection of capabilities to help them take a variety of challenges that the pandemic faced them and develop the capabilities to mitigate those risks. We did that over the course of the first couple of months of the pandemic, and now we're expanding with them into new ways of understanding the ecosystems that they serve. We've also worked with.
What do you mean, like routing ambulances to be more efficient, so they're fat that you could use less of them, or what do you mean?
That's right. So identifying what counties are likely to have an outbreak of the disease and for what reasons, and how can we buy PPE and ambulances and personnel as well. It's the whole it's the whole environment around an ambulance that this company supports and delivers, and they're truly a global company. So they're responsible for every large market for the most part in the United States, and then other locations as well. And because of that, they have to be very intentional about where resources are allocated. At the beginning of the pandemic, the big question is, how is this disease spreading? What are the vectors for the disease? And do we have the capability of reallocating resources in certain areas that we think are unlikely to be hit into areas that are more likely to be hit? And indeed, we were able to develop models and techniques to help them answer that question very effectively, including one of the first county level models that was applied in industry. We were the team that developed that. As the project evolved, now we're doing interesting things, complicated things with them to understand patterns of behavior for patients and getting a better understanding of exactly how different types of deployments are going to have different implications in different markets. So it's a client that we're very, very excited about collaborating with. We very much feel like we're part of their broader team, and it's been an impactful engagement for us.
What other projects stick out at you, that you particularly enjoyed or you think will have a big impact?
Arguably, are some of our most impactful projects have been in the defense space, doing a lot to identify different types of behavior to help complex data systems ingest new data and then develop algorithms to support that. For obvious reasons, we can't talk about that work too much, but it now constitutes a pretty significant chunk of our team's time with multiple projects in the intelligence and defense space now in operation. But I also, some of our other clients include large cruise lines where we actually help them mitigate some of their environmental implications, identify which systems are creating failures or presented opportunities to be optimized, and got to learn a lot about a team of people who genuinely love maritime operations, and the client is a very passionate group of individuals, and we were really excited about the opportunity to spend time with them to help them develop scientific capabilities that were going to be transformational. Not only do things to help them keep the ocean clean, but to also find new ways for them to explore and expand their capabilities more broadly. Additionally, we do a lot of work in financial services space. So we've worked with private equity firms, venture capital firms, banks, insurance companies to develop models that are sometimes actuarial in nature, sometimes risk forecasting in nature. That's really Valkyrie's home base, is in financial services, and that's one of the reasons actually we've developed our own internal projects oriented around algorithmically informed investment decisions.
And so in terms of investments, I mean, there's many quants out there. There's a lot of huge investment houses that do tremendous research. Where in the financial world are you trying to establish a new product or a niche?
So for a period of time, we were developing forecasting models for privately held assets for a number of clients. Then we started experimenting with publicly traded assets and incubated a hedge fund over the last 2 years or so. We're finally at the position now where we're externalizing that, giving folks the opportunity to invest and expand there. And I'm very, very pleased to share that our quantimentally based hedge fund is in a very strong and growing position. I can't speak too much about publicly our techniques there, but in short, we identify different ways of commingling disparate data around assets and then inferring underlying economics for that business.
Well, what can you say about it that's interesting or unique? Maybe you can't say much, but
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm very cognizant of this space is one that we've been affiliated with for quite a while, and the truth is that hedge funds overall are heading back to fundamentals. I mean, they're getting out of the entirely quant-driven models because for a lot of them, they think that it undermines their intuition and their central thesis to have algorithms make decisions for them. So the ironic thing is that these days, fewer and fewer hedge funds, especially that you've heard of, are utilizing high level science. We're one of the ones that have doubled down on that technique, and the returns have been fantastic for us. So, on our team currently on the hedge fund, we have a number of PhDs from different backgrounds who are developing models to exploit relationships between businesses or understand relationships between businesses, and then to make predictions about the value of that asset down the road. So for a long time, hedge funds were doubling down on the quant approach, but I think it's been really difficult for them to mobilize and identify real value out of those teams. We've done it quite a bit of a different way. We have a thesis that's completely horizontal. It's not sector driven. Instead, we let data that is available guide transactional decisions, and that's been very fruitful for us.
Well, in terms of COVID, I'm sure you're doing your own modeling in-house. Do you have any thoughts on where things are going with that situation? Since you're doing, again, tons of modeling for different industries, what's jumped out at you? What do you think is going to happen over the next 6 months or a year?
Sure. It's clear. So our team is comprised of, traditional STEM scientists, but we also have econometricians and those from the financial sector. And because of that, we think about a variety of different implications of the pandemic. Now, clearly, the virus itself, epidemiologically, has had a lot of different types of ramifications for different types of industries. And we did model the epidemiological side of the virus.
If you like this podcast, please click the link in the description to subscribe and review us on iTunes.
What we're finding is that there are many, many models to try and ascribe projection or create projections for the disease. And there's a lot of issues with all of them, right? A famous statistician once said, all models are wrong, but some are useful. And in this case, there are a lot of wrong models, and very, very few of them are useful. Even the IHME model, which was a central model for the plurality of projects were depending on that IHME model. There are lots of issues with that, and we've identified some issues with that, and we've optimized because of that. But in the first phase of our work with the ambulatory care, the ambulance company rather, we identified some of those issues and we optimized it, and we're optimizing it now. So what I'll say is that the best predictor of the next couple of weeks is certainly the last couple of weeks. Epidemiological models suffer, and so we've got a lot of trepidation about relying too heavily on them, especially with a virus that has some of the dynamics that we've observed over the past 6 months, the very trying 6 months. What we are putting more and more focus on, given the fact that the virus is not at a point where it's inflaming aggressively. I'm not saying it's receding. I'm not even saying that it's not increasing in certain areas in a way that's alarming, but we're not seeing a exponential growth in areas from the spread of the virus, at least in the markets that we do most of our business in. But what is very interesting are the ramifications of the pandemic on different industries. So we're very cognizant of industries that have exploded and industries that have imploded based off of COVID. So, medicine and the interaction between patients and care providers has evolved dramatically. Dentists and endodontists and physicians and nurses are all identifying new ways to interact with their patients, and technologies had to be very aggressive in order to satiate that need without compromising on the health of individuals. We see other changes, dramatic changes in industry. That financial services, for example, we're seeing a very different persona in investment perspectives and investor personas. It's changing the way that individuals are investing in the market and the way the market's responding to. Fascinating changes there. Even the way people are all working remotely has impact on different assets and different industries. One of our clients last year was just gigantic consumer electronics company that specializes in headsets and technologies for conference tables, amongst other things. And they've seen an incredible, resurgence and growth given the changing work environment of COVID. So for us right now, we've tuned our models on the epidemiological side as much as we think is necessary, as really as possible is probably a better word for it. And now we're thinking a little bit more about how different industries are getting impacted, some quite severely, from the fallout of the pandemic.
Well, in the U.S., when you look at the news reporting versus the reality that you're modeling, what's the difference? What do you see?
Certainly nothing that's malicious or contrived. I think more often, really what we're observing are discrepancies in the technologies that are being utilized for reporting. So it's less that anybody's trying to hide figures on COVID or manipulate figures on COVID. It seems more like there are infrastructural issues with how those data are collected, processed, and then rendered. We have good relationships with a number of different states. We've supported some state work. I'm really not at liberty to discuss that further. But I will say that one of the pressing challenges has been understanding how a new COVID patient is articulated from a data perspective, how that's captured, where is that data sent, how are those data brought together to create a comprehensive understanding of the state of affairs for an area, and then define policy based off of that. It's a complex problem. And I think that one of the resounding observations we've made at the federal level and below from a government standpoint is that we need to be much more intentional all the way down to the municipal level, much more intentional how data is collected in times like these, and what is the standard ontology or knowledge structure for those data, and how can we institutionalize structures moving forward so that we can be much more confident and responsive in our engagement with the virus.
Okay, well, very good. So, who is a potential customer for Valkyrie? Like, what kind of situation and budget would they need in order to, for your services to be worth it for them?
Absolutely. So we typically engage with companies ranging from about 17 weeks or so. 16, 17 weeks is about our shortest large engagement, all the way up to a year, up to a year and a half, even in some cases. So it's a pretty big range. And we engage less with a specific sector and more with a specific mindset. So we look for stakeholders and individuals who are results driven, who can easily define the KPIs and metrics that they're looking to optimize, who can be very intentional in sharing more about those metrics, and then can give us the space to develop the models and aggregate data in a way that we can answer that question. So individuals who are looking to make predictions about the value of an asset, individuals who are trying to optimize the relationship with their customers, individuals who are trying to cut costs, particularly now that's a hot area. We can help with all those things, but the requirement is that we have a stakeholder or a collection of stakeholders who can be very decisive, who can measure the issue that we're trying to solve, and then can give us the latitude to execute against that. That's when we're most successful. Typical engagements, they truly range. We have projects that start at around $500,000, but the majority of our projects are in the seven-figure space.
Well, very good. And for people listening, they should go to valkyrie.ai. Is that the best place?
That's the best place. Yep, we're actively looking for individuals who are interested in investing in our various funds, and always new customers. We love working with new customers on the client side. Valkyrie is a completely independent firm. We have no investors, no debt. We love that because it lets us be truly independent, and we've been able to grow this whole business off of revenue alone, which we're real proud of. So very, very different mindset and culture at Valkyrie, and we love to engage with new companies who are thinking about what can come next for their firm.
All right, very good. Well, Charlie, thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having us today.
If you like this podcast, please click the link in the description to subscribe and review us on iTunes.
You've been listening to the Finding Genius podcast with Richard Jacobs. If you like what you hear, be sure to review and subscribe to the Finding Genius podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And want to be smarter than everybody else? Become a premium member at findinggeniuspodcast.com. This podcast is for information only. No advice of any kind is being given. Any action you take or don't take as a result of listening is your sole responsibility. Consult professionals when advice is needed.